Hello, everyone, and welcome to this guide for rail for workers and resources, Soviet Republic, with me, Mangy Panda. In this guide, we're going to be covering the different types of rails, the buildings associated with rails, the various different types of locomotives and cars, basic rail construction, signaling, and a couple little tips on how to deal with your track builders so they don't give you quite as much of a headache. So, to first off, all of this stuff for your basic rails, 4 different types, you're found right down here in the second tab called Trains, and right here under your rails. So starting from top to bottom, we have the wooden base railway. This allows you to travel 70 kilometers per hour with a train, max speed, and it's built using gravel, wood, and steel. Then we go on to the concrete base railway, which increases your maximum speed to 150 kilometers per hour and is built using gravel, prefab panels, and steel. Then we have the electrified wooden railway and the electrified concrete railway, which do not increase the maximum speed but allow electrical locomotives to travel on those rails and are built with an additional construction phase that requires electrical components to come out to hang the wires and poles. Then you have various different bridges here. You have a couple of different truss bridges, steel deck truss bridge, and railway bridge. The main difference between the bridges, as we can see over here, is the spacing of the supports. So back here we have the basic truss bridge. Then right here, the second one, we have the railway bridge. Then we have the truss bridge. And finally, we have the steel deck truss bridge. And as you can see, for the same distance, we go from having 6 supports down to 5 supports. And if we flip over here, you can see there's 4 supports and finally 3 supports. So the different bridges, they give you more room underneath where you can build roads or footpaths or even other rails if you raise them up high enough to go over your rails, but at the loss of flexibility for the bridges. So for example, the basic truss bridge, you can see it's incredibly flexible. We can do a 360-degree loop with it. We can go wherever we want. But as you go and change the different bridges, you lose that flexibility. They no longer have the ability to turn. They can just go at angles. And once you go after a certain angle, you can no longer build it. And the more space you can get between the trusses or between the supports, the more rigid the bridge is, so the less flexibility you have. So you can see you have almost no angle that you can turn this at. It's very, very little. That's the disadvantage and advantages to the different types of bridges. All of these right here with the little electrical lightning bolt there, that just means that these are electrified and your electric locomotives can travel on them. The ones with M's, they're for metros. We're not going to get into metros in this guide. They are their own beast. And we're going to come over here. We're going to talk about the various different buildings associated with your rail network. So first off, we have the rail depot. Now in the rail depot, this allows you to build your trains. So you will purchase locomotives. They have them come here. You will purchase various different wagons at the border, and you'll have to send a locomotive there to pick them up and bring them back to a rail depot. And then while at the depot, you can move the cars around and adjust the trains however you want. So you can see this one, that's what he carries. If I add that car, all of a sudden now he has the ability to carry aggregate materials. So this is where you get to construct your basic trains. Next, you have your railway end station. Now, this functions just like an end station for any other type of ground transportation, for buses, for trams, for trolley buses. This allows your passenger trains to come in and turn around. Also allows you to control the spacing between your passenger trains if on the same line. Then you have the construction office. The construction office is what builds all of your rail lines if you're playing in realistic mode. The distribution office, which functions just like a normal distribution office, only for trains. It does have a few little quirks to it, which will be covered in my distribution office guide. And over here we have the various fuel delivery systems for the train. So you start off with a diesel station that will refuel diesel locomotives. You have a coaling station to refuel steam locomotives, and then a railway electrical connection, which is where you will plug in your electrical grid to your rail lines in order to run electrical engines. Then the various different stations that are available. So to start off with, you have a train platform. So this is a passenger statement or station. If you come down here, you look at citizens, there's all kinds of different ones. They come in all kinds of different sizes. You can get a large one. Same thing here. These are your general cargo. So they're found right here, cargo train stations. You can get all kinds of ones. They all have factory connections that allow you to connect up to anything else that has a factory connection. Then for your various specific things, you have a oil fuel loading, unloading, and a dry bulk loading, unloading. So both of these will allow you to do load and unload trains at this location. Aggregate is a little bit different. You have to specifically build either a loading station or an unloading station. You do not have an aggregate station that does both. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the various different types of locos and wagons that you have. So if we come in here, actually let's go over here to the border and we're going to purchase new vehicles. So first off, you have diesel locomotives. So all of these run off of fuel, just like any other road vehicle would. And if you look at them, they have a couple different stats. They have what their maximum speed is, which again is going to be limited by your track type. They have what their weight is, their engine power, and their length. So why is all this stuff important besides just the maximum speed? Well, the length is important because that has affected how long your trains will be coming out of a distribution office, which again will be covered in the distribution office guide. And the engine power shows how fast your train will accelerate depending on the load that it's pulling. So the higher the engine power, the faster it accelerates, regardless of what its maximum speed is. Then we move on to electric locomotives. So these will all be exactly the same as the diesel locomotives stat-wise. What's their empty weight? What's their engine power? What's their length? What's their maximum speed? And steam locomotives, which will be the exact same thing. All your locomotives are the same. It just depends on the type of energy, type of fuel that they use. Is it diesel? Is it going to be coal and water? Or is it going to be electricity? In addition to these basic locomotives, which you can pull any type of wagon with, you have some special things. So you have train sets, which these are just passenger trains. So you can see all this can carry is 130 passengers. You have motor wagons, which are right here, which is the same thing. They're much smaller. A train set is usually 2 to 3 cars hooked together. A motor wagon is just one single car by itself. You can hook them together inside a train depot, or they can just run by themselves. And you have trams, which trams can run on both tram tracks on roads and on your rail network. They do require electricity, so you do have to have an electrified rail network, but you can run a tram on your rail network back and forth. In addition to that, you have track builders, which your track builders are what is used to actually construct the track in the game. And then there's a special one that's a tunnel boring machine that you can see it's got a speed of 260. It is incredibly fast at what it does. But the only thing it does is bore out the tunnels. Then you'll have to come back with a track builder and you'll have to install the brick walling and all that stuff. But for making tunnels, track builder is just unbelievably quick. Then we go into the cargo wagons. So you have all kinds of different cargo wagons to haul all the various different kinds of cargo that you have. So a box car, again, is very similar to an open hull. You can see it carries the exact type thing: crops, foods, explosives, electronics. A refrigerated wagon to carry meat. You have a specific livestock wagon, even though your box car will carry livestock. You see this one carries 23 tons versus 37. You have open hoppers for carrying various different aggregates. You have wagons for carrying that are similar to open hulls, so they carry your steel, your prefabs, your boards. You have wagons for dry bulk. You have wagons for fuel and oil products. And then you have waste wagons, which carry any of your types of waste: mixed waste, hazardous waste, biological waste, whatever. So you can purchase all of these to build your trains however you want. Next, we're going to talk about actual rail construction. Okay, so you have to have, how do you build rails in realistic mode? Okay, well, first off, you have to have a rail construction office. Now, this does take workers. The number of workers that work in your rail construction office are based off of the number and type of track builders that you have. Each track builder can hold a certain number of workers, okay? And then they'll go out and they'll start building your tracks. Now, but you may be asking, how do you get started? Because if you come in here and we look at track builders, you'll see this one weighs 93 tons, 29 tons, 47 tons, 22 tons, 30 tons. How do you get something that weighs 30 tons out there when, let's go open home. You can only load a 13-ton vehicle onto an open hull. You don't have anything bigger. What you have to do is you come out here and you go to disassembled. This gives you access to a track builder. As you can see, this one only weighs 10 tons now. So it's all taken apart. You would purchase it here, then you would have a truck pick it up and drop it off at your rail construction office. And then it would be reassembled there, and it can go out and it can start building the track. Now, your rail construction office has to be supplied with the various materials to build the rails. So gravel, steel, prefabs, bricks, boards. Now, bricks are only used in the construction of bridges and tunnels. So if you're not going to build any bridges and tunnels, you do not need to provide bricks. Steel is used on all track regardless. Prefab panels are used on your concrete tracks, and boards are used on your wood-based rails. So if you're not going to build concrete rail or you're not going to build wood-based rail, then you don't need to provide those associated materials. Electrical components, those are only used if you're going to electrify your rail. So again, if you're not going to build an electrified rail, you do not need to provide electrical components to your rail construction office. And then of course, gravel, which gravel is used for all rail construction. It is the base of everything. You'll go through a lot. The rail construction office, as you can see, has it has factory connections. It has a water connection on this particular one so that you could put a steam-powered track builder in here. And it has various aggregate connections for loading coal if you're using steam power, or gravel for the construction. So you need to supply all those materials to here and workers, and then your track builders will go out and they will start building the rail. So the initial starting track builders you have are very, very slow. So if we come in here and we look at disassembled, okay, so we have the AMU or the MVU or the LTC. If we go look at what they are, so he has a speed of 12, speed of 10, or a speed of 4. So again, if you're doing early start 4, super, super slow. Then once you get to the border, you can get the larger track builders and have them drive to your rail construction office. You can see the speed jumps up. So we go from a speed of 10 to a speed of 35. So we can build much, much quicker. Or a speed of 4 to a speed of 18 or 17. Again, you're talking almost 5 times as fast. So you want to get to the border as quickly as possible. So your first rail construction office that you build, you probably want to build a small one because they do come in different sizes. If we look down here, you have a 4, which is a little one. It can hold up to 4 track builders, and the 8, which can hold up to 8 track builders. And then you have your modern versions and your early start versions. The early start versions will have all your connections for steam powered locomotives, whereas the modern versions will not. So generally you want to build a small rail construction office as close to the border as possible, so that first really slow track builder does not have a long time to build to get to the border. Then you can purchase the faster track builders and have them work on building the rest of your rail network. The last thing I'm going to talk about with this is rail deconstruction. So to deconstruct a rail, the track builder has to go out and deconstruct the rail. The difference between this and a demolition office is there's no waste trucks to go pick up the materials that are left over. So the track builder has to bring those materials back to your rail construction office. So if you are going to do rail deconstruction, you need to have a waste transfer station connected to your rail construction office. This will allow the construction waste and the metal scrap that you get from deconstructing rails to be stored. Otherwise, all you have is this internal storage, and if this gets full, you can't deconstruct any more rail until this gets emptied. So you want to make sure that you have a transfer station connected to your rail depot, your rail construction office. That's going to cover the basics of rail construction. I'm not going to go into any type of layouts or anything like that. That's a personal preference thing and for you to figure out. But the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to come over here and we are going to talk about signaling. Okay. So here we have just a basic rail network with an intersection. And if we come in here and we look at signaling, right now it just looks like regular rail. But as soon as we put one signal in, all of a sudden the whole thing lights up, changes color. Okay, we put another signal in, it changes colors again. So why do we need to signal? What do all the colors mean? You can run your rail network just like that with no signals. The problem is, once you have more than one locomotive traveling on here, they will run into each other. Now, they don't crash and cause problems. They will just get stuck. So you will literally end up with a time where you have a train on this track going this way and a train coming this way, and they just sit here and stare at each other. Because without signals, every train has 100% right of way on every track in any direction. So that's why once you start to get your rail system established, especially when you go to your second or third rail or train locomotive, you need to signal your rail system. That way you are controlling the flow of traffic. So again, what do all the signals mean? What did all the colors mean? Okay, so you have some basic signals. You have just a regular semaphore, okay, and you see it has just one little arrow. So you can change you click on it again, you can change the direction that the arrow is pointing in. You can have 2 arrows. So what does that mean? So whatever direction that the arrow is pointing in, that is the direction that rail traffic is allowed to go. So right now, with this right here, past this semaphore, until it hits another semaphore or an intersection. You're only allowed to travel this direction. Okay. If we flip it this way, now you're only allowed to travel, trains are only allowed to travel this direction. If we have that, they're allowed to go back and forth in both directions. The other thing what this signal will do is it will look, your train will come here. This is a stopping point, and your train will look forward. And if this next section, up until there's another semaphore, is clear, then the train will go. All right. Next, you have chain signals. Okay. So chain signals, you'll see they have 2 arrows, and it's the same thing. So you can only travel in this direction. You can only travel in this direction. You can travel in both directions. The difference between the regular semaphore and the chain semaphore is that instead of just looking at the one section right before it, the chain signal will look at this section and the next section to make sure they're both clear before it allows a train to go through. So basically, chain signals are used to clear intersections, because the one thing you don't want is you don't want a train stopping in the middle of this intersection. You want to make sure if a train enters this intersection that it is clear to go all the way through. So what do I mean by that? All right, so if we go and we have just the regular semaphores and we put this here and this here, okay? So we have a train coming through. It stops at this signal. This signal is going to check from here to here and see, is that clear? It's also going to look up this direction. It's going to check this. It's going to check all these intersecting tracks and make sure. So let's just go ahead and let's set that. All right. So it's going to check this section and make sure it's clear. If this section is clear, it's going to signal green for the train to move forward into this section. The train's going to come along here. Now there's another semaphore here. So this is another stopping point. So that train's going to come here. This semaphore is going to check to see if this section of track is clear. And if it is, it'll let the train pass. If not, it stops the train. So this signal could release the train, and the train could come into this intersection, and then this section is not clear, so the train stops right here in the intersection. Now all of a sudden, your entire intersection is blocked. So you cannot have trains coming this way, so off of this track and going up. You can't have trains coming off of this track and going down. You could have trains passing straight across here, depending on how you're signaled, but that's it. So you don't want trains stopping in the middle of an intersection. And that's why you use a chain signal. So now if I have this on here, it's got the double arrow. So what that's going to do is this signal is going to check, is this section clear? If so, okay, now we're going to look and we're going to see, is this section clear? If both sections are clear, it will release the train. So then the train will travel straight through the intersection and into this next area, and then move on from there. So it prevents trains from getting in and blocking your intersection. The train may sit here for a while before it gets to the intersection, but it won't sit in the middle of the intersection and block it. All right. So those are those basic ones. Okay. Next, we have the mixed. So a mixed is going to have a chain signal one way and a regular semaphore the other way. Okay. That's all it does. This is used for either during rail construction to help control your track builders, or when you're coming into a station where the station does not have an exit and the train is going to come back on the way it goes. So it's going to allow traffic in both directions, but you are going to have the chain signal on one end to make sure that it's clear for everything to get out. Okay, then you have your canceled semaphore. The other thing you have right here on your mix is you have the 2. This allows you, if you click here, it'll place a single semaphore on each side, clearing traffic, so you can have a 2-way rail. So each one of these lines is now one way in one direction. It is based off of right-hand drive trains. So the trains will always be going on the right-hand side. So the right-hand track goes this way, right-hand track, it goes this way. If you are from one of those weird countries, we're looking at you, England, that doesn't drive on the right side, you can change that in the game settings. So if we go ahead and we get rid of, let's get rid of those two. If we come over here and we go into our settings and we go to general settings, so right here, trains run on the left track. So if we check that box, now if I come in and I put my double signals, now they go the other way. So now the train is driving forward on the wrong side of the tracks. Okay. So if you're one of those weird countries that drives on the wrong side of the road, that's how you can change it. Just right here. And then if you check that again, it goes back. So why would you want this anyways? Well, because again, it looks, so we'll go back to, so we're going to come out this way. So the game will look at this as one section of track up until it runs into either the end of the track or the next semaphore. Once you're signaled, only one train is allowed in each section of track at a time. So if this track ran for kilometers and you just had that one signal, that means that until that locomotive clears the 5-10 kilometers of track, no other train can enter this section. So this allows you to break that section of track into smaller sections. So now it will check, is this clear? Sure, go ahead. Is this clear? Go ahead. Instead of waiting till this whole thing is clear, now it just has to have these little sections that are clear. Okay, let's get rid of all of this. So what does all of this mean? Okay, so blue track means that it's a straight, no intersections. Orange means that it is an intersection. Okay. Purple means that you have two intersections in a row. So you'll see you'll come in here into this orange intersection, then we go into this purple right here, because there's another intersection right here. Occasionally you will get this lime green. The lime green means that you have a very complex intersection that the game is not sure it can understand and it can handle. So you need to look at redesigning your intersection, or you need to re-signal your intersection. Okay. So ideally, once you signal your tracks, what you want to see is blue, orange, blue, orange, blue, orange. You don't want to see any purple, and you especially don't want to see lime green. So how do we fix this? Okay. Well, there's a couple ways we can fix this. We can go in and we can add in some signals here. Whoops. Now you see we're orange, blue, orange. But the problem is this is a very, very short piece of track. So if a train comes off of this intersection and goes through and stops at this chain signal right here, it's going to be backed up into this intersection. We're back into the spot where we have a train blocking the intersection. So I don't advise having short sections of track like this. Instead, what you should do is signal like that and get rid of those and turn this into one big intersection. Okay. And then you can come in, we can even signal here. That. So we have a smaller intersection. That way, this whole area just stays clear. Now, one tip for track builders, because I see people all the time fighting with track builders in this game. The reason why track builders are so difficult is because track builders want to move in both directions. Okay, they want to go. If they're building this section of rail right here, okay, so they're going to come out here, they're going to start building. When they get to the end, they've got to turn around and go back to get to their rail construction office. And that's where people start running into problems, because your track builders will get stuck, or your rail construction office will say, I can't reach that because there's no way for the track builder to go to be able to get. So like if I say build this section right here, the rail construction office is going to say, I can't reach that because you're telling me here with this signal that the track builders can't go down this track. So there's no possible way for me to build this track. So the way to, it's not 100% fixed, but it makes your track builders much more manageable, okay, is, so you've got your basic intersection right here, okay, and you want to build, you're going to continue building your trains this way, okay. So how do you manage your track builders? So what you're going to do is, after your intersection, and this is a little far away, generally you'd want to put it like right in here, which if this, you know, like this, you'd want your intersection right there, not all the way over here, but we'll get rid of that for right now. What you're going to do is you're going to put in mixed signals, right? Like that. Now what that is going to do is going to allow your track builders to come out. So they're going to follow your signals, okay? So we're driving on this side of the track, we check, we come through this intersection, we get to this crossing right here. Now all of a sudden these say, well, you can go down either one of these tracks. So the track builder can jump over to this side and start building down this way, or your track builder can keep going straight and build down this way. Then when they're done, they turn around, they come back and says, oh, look, we can go down both of these. Okay, so say they're going to go down, they're coming here, they're going to go down this track. So they stop here and they check and they look ahead and they say, okay, which way can I go? Well, these signals here are saying I can only exit at this point or this point. I'm not allowed to exit onto this track or this track. So I know that I have to use this crossing and jump across, and then I can exit here, or I can turn this way and I can exit here. So you won't have track builders getting stuck, okay? And you won't have a situation where I've seen before where you end up with a track builder right here and a track builder right here facing each other and they can't move, okay? This will keep your intersection clear, and this will allow your track builders to continue out along this path. And then every time you put in an intersection where your track builders are building, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put an X crossing in before that intersection and after that intersection. And you're going to want to signal it like this. That way, your track builders can get into and out of the intersections and then on to the next projects. Now, there will potentially be issues while they're constructing the intersection itself, but especially for these long, straight track pieces, they'll do just fine. Now, I would advise not placing signals on these long stretches of track while they're being built. The reason for that is as soon as I put a signal here, the rail construction office now sees this as two different construction projects. It'll build this one, then it will build this one. Depending on the range of your rail construction office, it may stop here and may not pick up your next construction. So I would recommend just leaving this unsignaled up until the time it's done. Once it's built, then you can go in and you can do all your signaling. Plus, you don't have to remember to come back and switch from having two-way traffic to just going to one-way traffic. It makes it easier to leave it that way. And that is all I have for this particular video. I hope you found it informative. If you did, please give it a like. If you want to see more of this type of content, please subscribe, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.